back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone and stream all of our live local shows. And we thank you for making us part of your day today. And without further ado, I want to bring back a friend of the program and a guy who's been a constant source of inspiration and support for me along my journey. Michael Shrieve, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Good to be back, Jake. How are you doing?
Good to hear you, brother. We were just listening to a live version from Fremont, California of "They Love Me 15 Feet Away," and that's off That's off your Spellbinder album.
It's off the first record, yeah. Not this. That one was out a few years ago, and then we have a new one out now. And that, if it's Fremont, that's a neighborhood in Seattle, where we were playing for many years on a weekly residency.
Can you talk about, even on this newer album, how much difference there is between the studio tracks of this band and then how it changes in a live setting?
Well, for one thing, it took a hell of a lot longer, but we recorded it in the house, the studio of our organ player, Joe Doria, who wrote a bunch of the music on the record as well. So naturally, you're able to, take the time to get things, just how you'd like them. And it seems when there is that possibility, it's taken. So it took a while to get the record done, and then the final stage of it, and the reason it sounds as good as it does, this new Spellbinder record, is because my buddy Pat Thrall from Automatic Man mixed the record, and he did such an exquisite job on it. And so I'm really very proud of the way the record sounds, as well as the way everybody played on it.
Can you talk about specifically what Thrall did so many things I listen to now, recorded now, that didn't go through the analog process. They not a lot of dynamics. They sound kind of sterile. Can you talk about what Thrall did that made it brighter, or just in general why you enjoyed the recording, the sound so much?
Well, I think it's because of the time that he took. It was like a labor of love for him. So I know he went through every note on that record and just brought the best out of it sonically. And so I just think it was the attention to detail that he gave it, and the time that he spent on it, that brought everything out in a way that, if that time was not taken, it wouldn't sound like it does. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I'm grateful to him for the time that he took on it, and really super pleased with the way it sounds. I think it holds up to any record, whether it's a top 10 pop record or any kind of record sonically, even though it's instrumental music. It sounds fat. The space, the stereo, the placement, the depth of it is all because of his mix. And that's why it sounds so much different than our first album, which was recorded live at that club in Seattle.
Have you been able to tour for the album yet, or is there plans to do like a Pacific Northwest? What do you got in so far?
I'd love to tour. I'd love to tour with it. So we got to at least put something together for the West Coast at a minimum, where we can at least drive. And otherwise, I'm doing a big push on it press-wise, and there should be a lot of stuff. We're getting some really great reviews on it, and I'm hoping to get a booking agent and be able to get out there. There's nothing more I'd like to do than get this band out there and tour with it.
Can you talk about my original question was juxtaposing the studio tracks versus what could be potentially seen live? I mean, will the stuff open up from a 7-minute to a 12-minute track? Does stuff like that happen in Spellbinder?
Well, sure it does. Yeah. But one of the things about Spellbinder, even though it's an instrumental group, is that I'm not a big fan of the usual, everybody in the band take a solo on every song.
Right.
So I like it to be tight, instrumental, arranged, and then there are solos, of course, and there is freedom that we take outside of the album. But having said that, I'm just not a big fan of every song, everybody solos. I really do want to keep it as entertaining as possible, and I don't want it to be something that seems just, what's the word, that a lot of people feel when they listen to an instrumental group. I don't want it to sound self-indulgent. I want it to be real fresh sounding, and I want it to be live music, real players right in front of your eyes, and I want there to be a high level of musicianship, but I don't necessarily want solos on every tune. But I guarantee you come to see the band, you're going to walk away really liking it. When I do instrumental music, I still look for the same things. I look for the feel. I look for melody. I'm still a big fan of melody. We do a tune. One of my favorite musicians is the Brazilian percussionist and composer Carlinhos Brown, and we do a couple of tunes of his that are vocal tunes, and we do them instrumentally. And we put one on the record called Pop Reladro, which is really beautiful. Well, it's just kind of a kick-ass, tune, and sounds like a horn section because there's a trumpet in the band, and we use some effects on the trumpet as well, and so that opens up the record, and there are no solos on that particular tune. And there's other songs that I covered that are just really very melodic as well. One of them is a song by, I first heard it by a singer by the name of, what's her name? Here, let me see. I got the album here.
Sure.
Let me open it up once.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec.
Talking to Michael Shrieve here on Power Talk 1210, his new album with Joe Dorio, Spellbinder, and he's
sorry about that.
No, go ahead. Who is it? Is it a pop tune or who sang it?
No, it's not a pop tune. It's a song by a singer. It's called Tirione, or Trillione. It's called, and it's a song that is sung by Dolce Pontes, who's a Portuguese or Spanish fado, F-A-D-O singer. It's a certain style of singing. And I heard it while driving in the car with my wife, and I just fell in love with the melody and said, no, this is the kind of melody I want to play with the band. And so we worked up an arrangement of that. It sounds like a very traditional tune, but it's really very beautiful. Another song is one called 1902 that was written by John Leventhal, the guitar player John Leventhal. And I first heard this at least 20 years ago on a compilation record of Six Degree Records. And the head of that label is a man named Bob Duskus, and he's got the most impeccable taste in music, and this was a compilation. And this was done by a group called The Mells, and it's just, I don't know anybody that's ever heard it. I mean, even when I told John and Roseanne Cash, who is John's wife, that I was covering 1902, they both looked at each other like, what? You heard that song? Nobody's heard that.
the musicologist you are, I love it.
Yeah, they were really surprised. And the way that they did it, is very different than the way it ended up sounding on my record. They have it with a clarinet as well, playing the melody. It sounds very, very, it sounds very European and Jewish. In fact, the whole record is of Jewish heritage music, but with contemporary artists. And so the way I did it is, it sounds more like Santana than it does like a Jewish thing. But and then so many of the others are done. There's a tune that was called Renewal that was done by the piano player Monty Alexander, and Joe Doria, our keyboard player, arranged that. And then all the other tunes are by Joe. But I think it represents the sound of the band, and it's markedly different than the first live album. So if you don't have it, I'll send you a link to it or send you a copy of the CD.
Talking to Michael Shrieve here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and since we last talked, Michael, I've been commissioned to produce a film documentary on Stan Getz. And
wow, really?
Yeah, man, it's a major break, and I thank you and all the cats for supporting me, because the producer found me through Facebook, and I wanted to know if you ever crossed paths. Well, first of all, you guys, we talked before about Joe Beam, so I have to believe that Carlos and you guys must have been loving some of the Stan Getz stuff. I don't think it was too sleepy for you, the girl from Ipanema, but did you cross paths with Stan? And could you talk a little bit about how you guys viewed him, and you specifically how you viewed Stan Getz as an old school improviser, where if he didn't hear it, he wasn't going to play?
I never met the man, so but I was always a big fan, a very big fan. A huge fan, yeah. As a matter of fact, because the sound that he got out of his horn was just amazing. Even, all kinds of records, from going way back to later stuff where Jeff Vaccaro played drums on it as well. Some of that stuff, I forget the name of the record, but that was really great. And yeah, he had a beautiful feel for the Brazilian stuff, of course, and his tone lent itself to it. But I never met the man.
Can you talk more specifically about the idea of the old school improviser? Somebody that might come to mind in the sense where Stan was on the road with Teagarden in 9th grade. He had no formal education. He could read, but at the same time he had big ears. And basically on the bandstand, if he didn't hear something, he was not just going to play for the sake of playing. He would allow the rhythm section to coalesce and often develop maybe their own idea, and then he'd come back in. And can you talk about that concept of old school improvisation, and in fact how you might even talk to some of the cats that are in your band now about, or just in general, don't play for the sake of playing, listen, hear, and play what you hear?
Well, I just read something. It was from one of your interviews, where Patrick Gleason,
yes,
had said
yes,
that he was getting together on a daily basis with Gil Evans in New York after Gil and Miles came to see Herbie Hancock's band at the Village Vanguard, and they would listen to the tapes of the live recordings, I guess, from the night before. I'm assuming Patrick was talking, saying that he was at Gil's place, and Gil noticed that he looked down while listening. That Patrick looked like he was getting depressed, and he said, "What's going on?" He said, "I just can't stand what I'm playing." And Gil said, "Yeah, that happens to me too. When I do that, I take my hands off the keys and put them in my lap and just listen. And then eventually the next thing I know, I'm playing."
So why did that resonate? Tell me why that resonated with Michael Shrieve.
Well, what it resonates with is the question you just asked, and what it means is, if you don't have anything to say, don't say it. just don't play. Don't play.
Right.
You know, just shut up and let the whole thing be going on. That's exactly what Gil was saying. I just listen to everybody else instead of thinking I have to step in there and do something. Now, of course, when it's time for you to play, you're expected to play. And, I don't know. I think that anybody has to be a couple of things: prepared in the mode of the music and the changes of the song if you're an improviser. But it's not all about the notes. It's not all about the amount of notes that you can play. It really means, can you, this is your opportunity to say something. What can you bring to the song? What can you bring to the listener? And to bring them into the music. And so it takes a certain sensitivity aside from the knowledge that you have, and the big ears are a large part of that as well, to be reacting to what's going on around you. And Stan Getz, if he wasn't so schooled, then I didn't know that, but he certainly had to have big ears. I know a musician, for instance, like the great drummer Dennis Chambers, he doesn't read, and he plays in complicated groups, like with John McLaughlin and Mike Stern, and so what that means is he's got huge ears, but what it also means is he's probably got a really incredible memory as well.
That's right.
To learn the songs. So I found that great musicians also have a great memory. It's something that is just necessary, and I think some people have better memory than others, and I think it has to do with the level of their musicianship in the end. I don't have a great memory.
Right.
And that's why I can point that out. I think that it's a quality that goes overlooked, because if you don't have it so much, then you appreciate that, some people really do have this, and it makes it easier, because they can catch things and it sticks with them in learning music and in memorizing music and things like that.
Can you talk about where you feel you most learned dynamics, in the sense of, we talked about Gil putting his hands in his lap and listening, and then coming back in when it felt right. Can you talk about, in your career, a moment where you sort of learned, knowing that you didn't have a great memory, but you were learning about, just stop playing so hard, slow down, don't play hard, listen, and even play softly, and then bring it back up? Was there a time when you really learned how to play with dynamics? Because I guess, I was talking to Reggie Workman a few months ago, and he was like, I go see cats now, and they are they're proficient beyond belief. They got monster chops. And he goes, but you know what? I don't see them ever incorporate the cymbals at all for an entire set of music. Never the cymbals. And those are colors, as far as I'm concerned. Joe Sample said the same thing. I'm just sort of letting you riff on this. You go with dynamics, symbolism, riffing. How did you learn to develop dynamics, and what would be your advice for people to remember that cymbals are part of the drum kit?
I learned it when I played in the big band at College of San Mateo in San Mateo, California, when I was given the opportunity to be in that band when I was going to school by the leader, and his name was Dick Crest. And I owe him a lot for, one, giving me the chance, and two, for explaining to all the subtleties. He, along with the bass player in that band by the name of Tom Rutley, took a lot of time to coach me and literally coach me about the shadings and what it takes. Even with a big band, it demands extreme dynamics from the drummer, and the whole band. But the drummer is really driving a big band. It's really something that I recommend for drummers if they can ever play with a big band or get the sort of recordings you can play along with and read the chart with a big band. It's an unbelievable experience and teaches you dynamics. And then you got to do the fill that kicks in the horns, and so it's all a really beautiful experience. I mean, it's like I don't know what it's like driving a tank, but then that tank can then feel like it's floating on water if it's done right. And so the masters of that stuff, like listen to Count Basie stuff, and Buddy Rich is the master of that too, and Sonny Payne. So those kind of players, and the big band stuff is really amazing. Or go to those roulette records of Count Basie, like the Atomic Bomb record and other ones. And
I can't believe you just name drop. It's so funny. This morning I just found this record, Teresa Brewer with Count Basie and Sonny Payne. I can't wait. I mean, Sonny was Basie's drummer in that big band. I mean, that to me was like.
That's right.
I mean,
right.
I'm
assuming Bob Thiel produced that record. Is that correct?
100% correct. Bob, that was on Flying Dutchman or whatever. Yeah.
That was his label, and Teresa Brewer was his wife.
Wow, so, I didn't know that. Thiel's long.
Yeah.
He's not. Thiel was the one that said LPs represent newspapers of that time. Such a classic line. But so
he did all the Coltrane records too. I mean, he did. He produced all those Coltrane records, and he co-wrote. The song that Louis Armstrong. It's a Wonderful World.
He was him and Bob Shad were essential among many. But I wanted to talk to you. You talk about the tank floating on water. I love that analogy. After your teachers at San Mateo, did we lose him? You still there, Michael?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got taught within the classroom. Can you talk about where that band would play, where you could actually realize the real impact of the drum and the power of the drum, even not being played in a powerful fashion? I mean, when you took it into a live setting, can you talk about a place where that it dawned on you that it really felt good? Because it's one thing to be in the rehearsal, and then there's another thing to play live.
Yeah. Well, yeah, during that period, speaking of those dynamics, I mean, one of the things, I don't know if floating on a water is the best one, but maybe like a steamship going across the water or something, because it's not standing still. Even the drummer in a big band just playing the cymbal with a walking bass and the bass drum doing 4 on the floor really lightly, feathering. I mean, just that feeling alone is unbelievable. And I was able to take those things, and at the same time as I was learning the big band stuff, it's also when I discovered all the small group stuff that was going on, like the stuff with Elvin and Jack DeJohnette and Roy Haynes and Art Blakey, and there was a lot of exciting groups going on at that period. This is like late 60s, I mean mid 66, let's say. So there was a lot of exciting things. So then at night, I would then go and play. It seemed like almost every night I was playing in Palo Alto at a place called the Poppycock, and there was a group of guys. One of them was the organ player was Paris Bertolucci, who still plays in the Bay Area.
Wow,
and,
this is great. I didn't even. Wow. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Paris, a great player. Ken Baker was on sax, and the guitar player, a guy named Kevin Hogan, and Paris was playing bass, I believe. And then this was the time I was just so young, and those guys helped me just even learn how to feel 8 bars, 16 bars, or 12 bars in the blues, and just without counting, eventually just learning what that felt like and playing in that small group situation. So that stuff was a really valuable experience. And then the next day I'd go to big band, every day. So those two different, the small group and the big band, that was really great. And then I was also doing R&B stuff as well. So it became well-rounded in a certain way, at least between big band, small group, organ group with horn, playing standards, and then playing in East Palo Alto in a place called the Nairobi Lounge, where we had a band that backed up, like singers coming through, like Etta James and B.B. King and stuff like that. And so all those experiences really, as different as they were, boy, I didn't like one more than the other. Each one of them I really loved. So my routine those days was get up at 8 in the morning when my parents went to work and practice from 8 until 2:33 when I'd go to big band, and then after that come home and then go play at night. So it was full time. I was going to school there, and then I left it. I left everything except for the big band, and just practiced all day. So,
did you were on this this black Chitlin circuit of Northern California like that?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. It was this one club in East Palo Alto.
It was like James Brown and the Flames during that period, though. Before he was.
Well, they didn't. They never played there. It was a small place. I mean, I know I backed up in another place somewhere. I backed up Sugar Pie DeSantos at one point, and you remember her?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the names. I mean, no, the idea that how old were you when you were backing up Etta James?
Maybe 17.
So you were still in high school. I mean, you weren't even
18. No, I was in junior college.
You were in junior college. That's okay. So continue.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to break the Nairobi Lounge. Go ahead. Continue to riff on that.
Yeah, and so, but it did get a little funny sometimes where it got a little schizophrenic because
right.
I did back up the singer of Sugar Pie DeSantos, and she called off a tune, 1, 2, 3, 4, or like 1, 2, 1, 2, and she's an R&B singer, and so what do? I start playing a swing beat on the cymbal, and I'm like, this is where the stuff got confusing because I was doing big band and I was doing. And, oh, man, it was so embarrassing. I mean, she literally stopped the band, turned around, looked at me, and went, mm-hmm, and she kicked me off the stage.
Oh, man. Humbling.
Yeah, humbling. Like, man. It's not a jazz tune, white boy,
Oh man, having a ball here with Michael Shrieve on the Jake Feinberg Show. Did you get a chance to see, if you went to the jazz workshop, the idea of this? I'm going back to the early '60s now, so I mean, maybe it was with you and your pops, or even it was like Dizzy and Roland Kirk before it was Rassan, or Wes Montgomery with the Coltrane Quartet. The idea of having a guitar with cats that were playing modern jazz. I mean, there's this whole thing now. I mean, I just got on the phone with this bass player who basically said Beethoven didn't play classical music, meaning it wasn't. That's just a label. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is this. Coming out of bebop in that early '60s period, that modern jazz incorporating psychedelia with jazz. And because I've been talking to some cats lately who've seen that stuff, and they said the audience, the audience was dancing. This was not like play it cool, this is a jazz club, let's just tap your foot. This was like people pandemonium. Did you have? Yeah.
What kind of gigs are you talking about? Like what kind of performers?
Like we're talking like Dizzy with Roland Kirk, or Wes Montgomery sitting in with Coltrane, and just the idea of that that early '60s period of jazz where it was not bebop, it was way beyond. The psychedelic had come into it. And I was just wondering what the closest thing you could remember, because basically people were dancing to it. That's why I bring it up. They were dancing.
Well, for me, I guess, I don't know about the psychedelia with the things that you're mentioning, but I think maybe the closest thing that comes under that sort of category to me would be Charles Lloyd live at Monterey. And that record, that was with Jackie Jeanette and Keith Jarrett.
Cecil McBee or Ron McClure or something like that?
Yes, yeah, one of them. Let's see. But there was a period. There was a period during them in that time when some of the San Francisco groups, they. Let me think. I think of some of that stuff like Mike Knott and Knock.
The Fourth Way with Eddie Marshall.
The Fourth Way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then John Handy's group.
Sure.
That stuff around that period. That to me was all happening around the same time. Like the Fillmore stuff was happening, and like the Charles Lloyd record came out in '67. It was recorded in '66, so around this period, '66, '67, and then John Handy's group came out, and that was smoking and had that guitar player Jerry Hahn,
sure,
and Fourth Way, Eddie Marshall, and Mike Knock, and those guys were doing, they were starting to blend stuff pretty much, and it was a Bay Area thing as well.
That is.
And then then you had groups like the Blues Project in New York, and what's that flute player?
I'm just, I'm going more to like the bebop, like in the early '60s. Were you still like outside Basin Street West? You couldn't get in. You could like.
I couldn't get in. No,
not even.
I would go stand outside like the Both End Club, Basin Street West. I could probably get in. I think maybe I went there, but I don't recall what, because they served food. But I know Jazz Workshop. I already told you the story, I think, of when I was invited up there by Elvin and the guys in Coltrane's band, and I went up with my father, and I couldn't get in.
Well, you told me you crawled through the ceiling at Stanford that day.
That's right.
And then they invited you to the show, but you had to stay outside like a dog looking through the window. Yeah.
That's right. Like a dog.
Like a dog through the window. Now, it's funny you bring that up because, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience as objectively as you could. I saw some of the performances. Can you just give an honest assessment of this new Santana project that came out this year, and the tour that you went on, and ultimately, if you're at peace, or just in general, did you feel at peace on the drum kit with all these cats that you've been in the trenches with years ago? Can you just take us through that experience, because as you know, I'm always searching for authenticity, and I want you to go on that for a minute.
Well, when we first got together a few years ago to check it out and see how it would feel, it was magic, and boy, we recorded a couple of days of us, and that was even before there was bass or timbales. It was just Carlos and Carabello and Greg and myself, and that was really great. And then when we got Carl Perazza and Benny Wheatfield in on bass from Carlos's band, it was also great. And the recording, I think, is I'm proud of the recording. I had surgery with a trigger finger on my thumb, like really close to that recording. That it was. I was experiencing this trigger finger, which, if people don't know, is when your finger bends and you can't bend it back into place, it gets stuck. And I was experiencing that with my thumb, and I was like, "Oh man, what am I gonna do? I got this. Should I, chance doing the record, or should I chance going into surgery?" I did the surgery, and I wasn't completely up to speed during the record. But the record is something I'm really proud of. It sounds good. It sounds really good. And then we did some gigs. One of which is coming out on DVD in October, live at the House of Blues in Las Vegas. So we have a show coming out and record, both vinyl and CD. And then we did 3 dates on the East Coast, Madison Square Garden, and 2 other dates. My only disappointment is that there wasn't more. It felt like a big build-up for nothing.
Yeah.
We didn't tour it, and so the gigs, everybody really enjoyed doing them. The band sounded great. The people loved it. But then we just didn't do more. So that was a disappointment, in all honesty.
I want to just stay with it. I mean, speaking only for yourself, I mean, it might be self-evident to you, but why was it a disappointment? Because to me, it's like, I just know that your generation, you guys you'd make a record and then you'd play 160 live gigs. That was what was going on. So now it's 3 gigs. So can you talk about the disappointment?
I don't know. I can't. All I can tell you is that I was disappointed. I mean, I can't really, it's not really a big discussion. It's just that Carlos decided to not tour with the band, but tour with his own band. And, as you know, his wife, Cindy Blackman, is the drummer in his band. She's a great drummer. And so it really, the whole thing is up to him. I mean, it's more or less the ball is in his court. So, and on one hand, I can understand it because, he's got his own scene going on, his own crew, his own office, his own band, and it's much easier to do it and much less of a hassle than to put up with everybody else who's got an opinion about something from the original band.
That's what I wanted to know. It's very obvious what I dig what you're saying. Can you talk about some of the, like, when you talk about magic, in the sense not only was the music magical, but did everybody's personalities just immediately fall back into place as well, where everyone had their own opinion, or it became, you might get bogged down, but then eventually start playing, and then the magic would occur. Can you talk about, I don't know, that there's something extremely spiritual about, I mean, you guys were an iconic part of rock history, and then to not recreate it, but come back and do something different and make a record and be back in that again. That's like a time travel and with some characters. But you think that that's harder because Carlos doesn't have full control in that sense.
Well, I can't speak for Carlos. I'm looking at it and wondering, because there really was no explanation. So
right, it was just you left in the dark.
You know what I mean? There wasn't like, okay, guys, here's what's happening. We're doing 3 dates and that's going to be it. It was more like we're all wondering, are there going to be more dates? And there was no explanation from his camp. So, and also the fans assumed that it was going to be this band touring, and it wasn't. So I was as disappointed as the fans were in many ways. And, and so I'm only guessing when I say it's probably much easier for Carlos not to have to deal with all the guys from the original band, even though, there's demand for this group. It's kind of historical. We're back together. This band makes kind of a magic together. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I think it shows on the record too. It's just a different sound. That's all. I mean, it is what it is. So all I can say is it was wonderful doing it, and I wish we could have done more.
Do you have any plans to catch up with? You going to see David Garibaldi anytime soon, or have you seen him lately?
No, I haven't, but he's coming up here, I think, in the next couple of weeks, so I'm hoping to see him.
Well, with Tower of Power?
Yeah.
I mean, this is fascinating stuff. I mean, tell me a little bit about if you had a dream scenario where you had a budget and you could put together, you mentioned before about keeping people entertained, and I love the idea where you said not everybody gets a solo on every song. And I remember talking to Herb Albert, and he just thought that part of reinventing music or jazz was just getting out of that structure of, horn solo, piano solo, bass solo, back to the head, getting out of that. If you had a budget and a dream sort of experimental band right now in your head, what would that be?
It would be the people that I put together on my record that's going to be coming out later this year, called Drums of Compassion.
Wow.
Where I'm playing 16 toms, standing up in a semicircle. Jeff Greinke is a sound designer synthesist who I started the record with. But then I have Jack DeJohnette and Olatunji doing Invocation on the start of the record, Zakir Hussain, Pete Lockett, all these great drummers and percussionists. Airto is on there. And Trey Gunn, from King Crimson,
sure,
does a couple of tracks. I have a track with Amon Tobin and I did together. It's almost meditation music. It's not meant to. The record started out many years ago after I came home from listening to music in clubs around 2 a.m. And when I come home and I try to chill out or calm down, I listen to a different kind of music than I would at 3 in the afternoon, or
of course.
So I listen to chill music, like choral music, or certain kind of electronic music. So I said, what kind of record would I make that I would listen to at this hour? And so that was the whole impetus of the record, was what kind of record could I make as a drummer that I would want to put on at 2 a.m. And so that's what this record is. And I would do that, and I would do it with full visuals, really make a whole environment more like the electronica people are doing, like the EDM people are doing, but with a different vibe musically, but visuals and even scent, and even somewhere between EDM and the work that Todd Mockover does from MIT. He does these operas that you walk in and it smells a certain way, and it's this and it's that, and so I really would love to move more in a direction where it's a cross between a spiritual experience and tech, that where you're using tech to create a transformative environment with live music. So,
this is fascinating. So it's multi-sensory, also
multi-sensory, multi-media, of course.
Yes.
I'd have holograms going, and I want to make it just an environment. I mean, maybe it's even an environment where you have to go to rather than it travel. I don't know. I love those kind of magical shows, like Cirque du Soleil, or stuff that's like in Vegas where they have the budget.
Yeah, but I mean, this is exactly what needs to happen. I wanted you to just talk. I've been asking a lot of cats about this. When you're in a band and everybody's on the same page, can you talk about the idea when you're in a free-form jam and you lose your way and you get lost? The idea that if everybody's on the same page, any note can be the one. Can you talk about the idea and your philosophy of any note can be the one?
Well, I didn't say that.
No, you didn't. I'm just that's my line. I'm just saying, what is your belief about that, in the sense of that everyone's wants to be focused on where the one is. Where's the one? You know, everyone, the bass and the drum, you got to know where the one is. But the idea is that if you're just making up improvisational music, totally making it up, and you get lost, or you get, you find your way back, and you're with like-minded musicians, the idea that any note can be the one. What do you feel about that?
Well, you mean like James Jamerson?
one. Yeah, well, no, because what's so great is that the late 70s, when the drum track came in and disco came in, and he moved to LA because of Motown, and some guy's like, I can't find the one, man. I can't find the one.
I know.
And it's like, he's like, any note can be the one. I just want, you guys are the ones to keep this lineage going forward. So just riff on that, however you feel.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I understand what he's saying. On the other hand, and if you're in a free-form situation, and people lose where they are, I think somebody's got to say where the one is, and I think the one cannot be any beat. I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about James Jamerson. And I read that interview where he said one.
These guys like, where's the one, man? Where's the one?
I know. One. I love it. On the other hand, if I were to be honest, I would say that there has to be a one, and there has to be a 4 or 6 or whatever the time is, because that's what creates the tension. If you're going off the beat, returning to that one, because you create the tension when you go out and off, and then when it snaps back to the grid of one is where the delight is, where the payoff is. Because if somebody goes out, and what's beautiful is that they knew where they were the whole time. Now the listener may not have, and the delight is when they come back to the one. And it creates the tension. It's like Indian music. That's what they do. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 11 or what, but improvising over that and then coming back to it is what creates the thrill of the ride. And so I would say no, every beat can't be the one, because that's what creates the tension, going away from it and then returning to it.
I love this. I like the other philosophies. This is what I need. This is going to be transcribed. But, it's about creative tension. When is Drums of Compassion coming out, Michael? Do you have any idea?
Well, I don't know. It's done. It's mastered, and I need to just get artwork for it and get it up and out. So I was hoping to have it out by now. And every year I say, I'm going to do something drastic if I don't get this out. And so now it is, finished and mastered, and I've just got these other loose ends to finish up. I was even hoping to get it in to submit it for a Grammy nomination this year, but I think I'm rushing it, and so it's been long enough anyway. But I want to get it out this year and get it out. I'm really proud of it. It's a different record. I'm not expecting everybody to love it, but I need to get it out and off my chest.
Well, when you're ready to go, let's hit it, because I want to pay respects to Olatunji. This thing has obviously been done over many, many years. So let's keep in touch, and we'll have you on and promote that when it comes out. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, my man. It was good to hear you, brother. Be good.
All right. You too. Thanks, Jake.
Cheers, Michael.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
And so far, Reed Mathis and Michael Shrieve, Not a Bad Day on Power Talk. We'll be right back with Tom Ledden on The Jake Feinberg Show.